Alrighty, let's take a look. See here. I've watched this a couple times. One of the first things is I'd like to know what mods you're running. We can see if we can help you in the mod department a little bit. You saw it had some, but I'm not sure if you have all of them. Most of the issues in this engagement really weren't even your fault. It was really your cruiser backup. Your cruiser backup was not good. And that can happen at this level of play. Not necessarily your fault. There's some points there where if you don't have cruiser backup, there's really not anything you can do. And not having any smoke doesn't allow you to disengage. And since the AB was probably going to be your hold side, I'm not sure what the plan was here as far as what the caller was doing. Here I'm usually boosting at the start. It's a personal preference. I like to get over into position as quickly as possible. I can see that the caller is Nocturnal's making his calls. Looks like you're going to have some folks out at sea, then maybe pulling back into the 8-9 line, depending on what's available, kiting out and away. And then, of course, your job with your cruiser setup is to kind of probe, see what AB is got going on, and if you can make a push, make a push. Obviously, so the first thing is getting on the A cap as soon as possible, which is what you're doing. Whether you boost or not, you're trying to make that best line to get A capped. Annapolis looks like he's setting up to play mid for radar coverage, which I think probably Moscow would have done a better job of that instead of playing out away with his better radar. Depending, I could be wrong. I don't know where Annapolis. I think it's on that name K. So we see a battleship. Now I'm not sure if it's my game that is showing the RPF in this way, or if it's your game where you have this mod that shows the RPF with the 3D, the markers. And if you see how this cone is out here, I'll usually ping the middle of it, and you can kind of have a rough idea. And as you get closer and closer, then just about, out here, he could be anywhere from here to here, or slightly outside. But as you get closer, then just about exactly where he is. Here, good job here. We're wanting to preemptively throw torps. Now, you can almost bet money that here at F5, there's going to be a cruiser. You just bet money. Now, you can throw it out across here, but you can almost guarantee as you start to continue to push out into this 2-3 line, you're going to get angles on somebody parked here. And this is what ends up happening. You end up spotting this Des Moines. And I think that you could have put some more torpedo pressure on this guy. But what's going on here is if you look here at the mini-map, Hindenburg is obviously not as fast. Annapolis is taking an anchor point, and the Hindenburg is kind of slow rolling. And basically what's going on is that your caller goes, hey, this is initially where I want you to go. And then, again, I don't know exactly what he said. And then what I'm looking for is who's where, what red guys are in what positions. And so currently, if you don't see anybody, then you don't know to push or not push. So right now, your Gearing is playing way off the cap. You spot a couple of people. He doesn't try to make any attempts to really do anything, and y'all have kind of played off of C. So it looked like this is supposed to maybe be cover C, and you guys push AB. Well, the problem here is Annapolis can't really push down the gap because he doesn't know what's out here. Hindenburg is not wanting to close with anybody because he's scared of getting overwhelmed, and you are in not a high detect cruiser, but sure, but 6-1 with no smoke, you're not really set up for this. You can't take gunfights except on your terms. And this is evident when you kind of get out there. But these two cruisers are not supporting you at all, which is not a problem if you go into your engagement set up that way. So if you're sitting here looking and going, okay, you just pretend like you're by yourself, which right now you are. Annapolis has 0 shots for the most part. He might be able to get down here to this guy. But Hindenburg cannot. He can't shoot anybody on the 4 line because he's too far. He's too far back. And even when he gets lined up here, he's really not set up. So As we continue, we throw some torps, that's good. We throw them on wide angle, that's good. All right, so now we know, we go, so here's what I'm thinking. Who is the torpedo? Well, now if I know the Kung Ming here, and he should have deep waters, now you know who you're fighting, the Cassard. That call should be going out to command. I have the Cassard on my side, he's roughly down here, blah, blah, blah. You guys probably have the Kung Ming, because most of the time you're going to split your destroyer. So that's data that's going to your caller that's making his job that much better. If I'm the gearing player, now I'm willing to kind of play in a little closer, because now I'm not worried about torpedoes. I'm not going to take some sneaky torp because it's deep waters. And if they are torps over there on that side, I'm going to see them and I can call them out for my cruisers. So here, the biggest deal we want to do is we're really watching our mini-map and our detection range. Well, we're well outside of our detect range. Now, I haven't fought the Cassard maybe once, so I'm not sure what its detectability. It seemed a little bit lower than yours, maybe like 6 or 5.8. And anyway, so I would probably be dipping down here a little bit lower and ready to kind of just J-hook in here and haul ass out with my speed boost. We know that Cassard is somewhere down here, FG34. I don't know exactly how your RPF looks. And then he switches back. Now this bounce here could be that as the Des Moines got closer, the Des Moines happened to be closer to you than the Cassard was. So you got to watch that being spoofed, like I talked about, where there's two boats really close together and they're equidistant to you, and as one gets closer and one gets further away, it kind of bounces. And this is one of the things that can tell you, you might have a ship that's made to turn, or you might have the Des Moines here on the corner. So at this point, if we look, Hindenburg is starting to play out, which, again, I'm not sure. I think that I would probably be trying to get a turn and then get turned where I can get bow on. Obviously, Des Moines versus Hindenburg is not a fun engagement, but if it's one guy versus one guy, he got a heel, you have a heel, you can close the distance, and back up from you, he can do it. Also, if Annapolis can get rounds in here, that kind of stuff. At this point, he's on the border of your torpedo range, and his radar is only 10 kilometers. So I personally would start pushing in here to try to keep this guy lit as long as possible. Now here, we notice the Cassard. He must get radared, I'm guessing. And so at this point, I'm not sure if someone told you to shoot at this guy or you just decided to shoot at this guy. But this is not a gunfight that you want to take in this setup. Really and truly, this is, you can shoot, but the odds are you're gonna take a lot more punishment than you give out on these guys. You can draw some fire and do that kind of stuff, but really this is the time for your cruisers to shine. Now, highly likely, this Cassard is pushed up here so that he has torpedo range to throw torps up at the Hindenburg. And it's Hindenburg's job to be popping his own hydro. If he's not, and you're the caller for that side or something like that, and you're like, hey, he's probably got torpedoes on the way. So here you start shooting, and I wouldn't have fired here. But if you are, then I would have shot for the cruiser. Let's get some fire started on the cruiser if at all possible, and get him to start burning his stuff out. Now again, we're getting a lot of shatters on his nose and on his superstructure. And if that's happening and you can't really affect anything, you're not getting any fires, you could either work on fires or go to AP. But currently, you're just shattering shells. And now it's time to maneuver. So keep in mind, when you're doing your maneuvering, you want your butt between the two things that you're avoiding. Once you break contact, then you make your hard turn and get out of that line of travel. Your Hindenburg looks like he's crashed into an island and is pretty much not doing anything. You're stalled over there at the 8 line, and it looks like Nocturnal's calling to go around the outside edge. So the Hindenburg's having to get off of the edge of the map there, or the island, and then try to get down south. You've pointed out the Cassard, And you're going to need backup from the Hindenburg in order to do that. Now, he's not as fast. He's slower than you. Here, I'd be throwing torpedoes on that at that Des Moines on the corner. Don't worry about trying to hit the Cassard. He's going to be maneuvering. He's really fast. Go for percentage plays. He's in your radar range, or he's in your torpedo range. Throw torps on him, narrow spread on the corner of that island. I was throwing 2 sets right out of the corner. Because 2 things. Number one, that's going to give him back up a little bit. And if he plays forward, he's in the same spot. And we want to try to get some chip damage if we can. So at this point, the Annapolis starts to push. We use a radar to clear the corner. I wouldn't have taken this gunfight. I would have nosed into the island and shot over the island at him. And instead, here, you take a lot of damage with really no gain for it. You pop your repair. As soon as you start taking the damage, just go ahead and pop your repair. This is going to counter any fires. And I wouldn't pop your damage control until you actually take like double fires or something like that. You want to try to hold out. You want one or the other going. You want your repair or you want your damage control. At this point, you need to be moving away from this guy. You started some fires, you damaged him. It's time to clear away. So we want to get either 45 degrees off angle, or we want to get our nose to him and start our wiggle and start to move away, which is what you're doing. But you turn back in to try to get a little more in. No, you're almost free and clear. And again, I don't know if your Hindenburg's even shooting. He should have angles at this point, or he's shooting it to Des Moines. So this is another thing here, is that you really can't continue to take this gunfight. The Hindenburg and the Annapolis need to be pushing up Des Moines. And now that you push the Cassard off far enough, I would have probably rolled over and went right in with the Hindenburg. Had him pop his hydro. Here, I would throw a set of torps, cutting him off at B. So I would shoot my torps down there at like G4 on the way to B. And then I would move over into the gap with the Hindenburg and piggyback off his hydro. So you can see Trumas has got his hydro up, but now he's pinned. He can't really move against those guys in the gap over there at C. And the deal is that you really can't take another straight up gunfight with that Cassard. He outguns you too much, and the Hindenburg has to back you up. So really, just like you did in that game where we were at, where you were sitting with the Goliath or whatever that British boat was, Cerberus or whatever. That's what you need to be, in my opinion, with the Hindenburg. So this guy is pre-firing you on the corner. He has you located. He knows roughly where you are, and you know where he is. And he should know that as well. And so again, what ends up happening is that he's a lot closer than you think he is. And so his detection is like 6 or 5'8". And so the problem that you got now is that if you're going to throw torps and then turn. Pick your angles and throw the torps. Repair that fire immediately. Like right now, you're taking a lot of time thinking about torpedoes. Just throw some. Just get them out there. And then turn into your buddy. What you're going to do is get the Hindenburg between you and him. And he should have his hydro. Which ends up doing is that his is burnt. He doesn't have it ready for this attack. See, and at this point, you're looking off to one side, I think, instead of looking at the target that's shooting at you. You want to keep your eyes on the target that's shooting at you and keep your turn to mitigate that damage as you drop off of detectability. Now here again, you throw torps at him. He's not going to be there. I mean, right now, what does he want to do? You have to think about this. What is this destroyer trying to do? He's trying to keep you off of that cap. So where is he going to go? To the cap. So I'd be shooting almost on the edge of this cap circle. Like, let's see if we play back right. I'd be shooting torpedoes here. Out in this direction. Because he's going to play out this way. Because what he's going to do is he's going to come out this way and move towards his buddy and relight you. Primarily keeping the Hindenburg up. Because neither one of these guys can push out while all this ball of nastiness is here. But again, the Gearing's out of position because he's probably been forced out. The Moscow's way up north and the Maine's way up north. So no one can really get in here. Jacksonville's limited on angles. He can't push out without taking a bunch of damage. So this guy's got to come back south in order to deny this cap one way or another. He could turn around and try to head north, but it cuts him off from that. If he was going to pull you away from the cap, he could do that stuff. My anticipation would be that he's going to try and keep you off of this cap, which is what he does. And so you want to be throwing torps in front of him. But the deal is, if you're going to throw the torps, pick your angle, throw the torps, start turning. Because what's going on is that you're taking a long time to make your decision on your torp launches, and you're taking a lot of damage while you're sitting there. When, where, just throw them, pick an angle, throw them, get turned. Get your butt to him or get your nose on so that you can mitigate damage. So again, now we've picked up the Kung Ming. At 6'1", both Kung Ming and Cassard apparently have higher lower detects than you do. So you don't want to be the first man out there with your health pool, and this is what ends up happening. Obviously, you're screening for the Hindenburg, but really and truly, the Hindenburg should be pretty well typecast for this type of engagement. The problem is that he's broadside to everybody at sea, and he's got hydro, but apparently it's either not set or he didn't anticipate it. And really, there really wasn't anything that you could do. So another thing that you can see as you're engaging this boat, and again, you'll see my gun sight up there. This won't be your gun sight. I think you said you're running dynamic, and I run static. Number one, you've got to be in the scope. Most of your time where you're driving the actual ship, unless you have an island or something, your eyes should be down here on the actual minimap. You're driving and moving about the map with the minimap. So as soon as a dude pops up, your eyes are coming off your minimap over to this target to go, oh, there it is. And again, this is kind of the problem with the Smaland, is that in order to get both guns on, you've got to present some side. Well, you don't have a lot of health to really do this. So initially what I would probably do is do an initial angle here, try to get a little bit of damage on him to get him to turn away, and then kind of nose on and just work one gun. And I would be kind of zigzagging towards him, or trying to slow down and break contact if at all possible. And so what you'll do is come back to all the way back to full, all the way back to full reverse and full forward, and try to get this distance outside your spot. And once he's out there at like 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", now one of you's probably going to stop shooting. Now he'll probably turn back in, and at this point, what's going on is you're pinched. The Hindenburg's going to die to torpedoes. I don't know how much experience he has with the Hindenburg, but really and truly, this should be a pretty easy gunfight for the Hindenburg to win. But there just seemed to be a lack of something broke down and something didn't work out. The Smaland was really not built for this engagement. You were out detected and outfought by these two guys, and your cruiser backup really wasn't set to help you. And so sometimes that's just the way that you have to play it. So right here, if you look at this is my static gun sight. This is Houderez's Cute Zebra, I think it is. And it has these hash marks on it, and I don't know what any of this crap means on here. But basically, the way that I do my shooting is if a boat, whatever the ship is capable, say a ship does 20 knots maximum, then this 10 marker is roughly where the dispersion of your shells is going to go, unless you have extremely high velocity guns like a French boat, or you have really floaty shells like what you have here, and it's at great distance. The rough indicator for something that does about 20 to 25 knots would be about 10 to 12. A boat like this should be doing 30-ish knots, or capable of doing 30 knots. So the 15, so 14 to 16 marker should be pretty good for this boat, depending on his speed. And as you'll notice, your rounds are going pretty much where that was at, depending on how fast he is and what his angle is to you. I don't know if you have the angle indicators, and basically you can do this to try to get that. Some people are really good at being able to pick that up and go, okay, my rounds can go through at this particular angle. What I want to know is how much is he turning away from me and how much is he turning into me? Because if I can continue to cut across his tail, I increase this angle to me, which means he has less guns on. so I can continue to shoot while he runs out of gun angles and can't shoot without exposing more side. Or I can nose into him and mitigate the profile of my boat to his. So this is something that you can use, and it can be posted down here on the left, or it can be posted right here in the middle, and I can walk you through my mod setup. I use as lanes if you want. So we're getting rounds on. I think you're shooting a little high here personally, because you're going to be able to penetrate, or you should be able to penetrate. I think you have like 6-inch guns, or 5.8, 5.9 inch. And this is a gearing. I think he's 20 millimeters, 19 millimeters, all the way around. So you should be getting full pins from one end of this boat to the other. And what happens is with the horizontal dispersion versus vertical dispersion, horizontal versus vertical. Your vertical dispersion, I mean, you might hit the smokestack in the funnel and get some damage, but you may also zing around through here and miss. And with only 4 rounds going at a time, you don't have the time to have shells not impact. And so we're getting good damage. Cassard blows up your buddy, and he gets some secondary rounds in here. But again, you know, if Hindenburg was running RPF and was able to know where the boat was roughly at, he should have been anticipating torpedoes. But this comes with experience and time and all that stuff. So really and truly, this is not, it's not a game that you could have won because you're part of a team. And so like right here, I'd have been shooting a little bit lower and a little bit further, like right here on this angle. But this is something that you learn through seeing and shooting, and you get the same sight picture. You see the same boats in the same position shooting at the same time. And this is something that you'll work on. And you make corrections. As you see, he starts to increase angle. If you're shooting right here, we're shooting for this big meaty part of the boat. We want to make sure that each round lands and does full damage if we can. Right now, you're not exposing, you're not full broadside, but you could probably turn in just a little bit more. And this is something that you want to do in these gunfights. You want to feather the throttle. You want to be from full to full, back and forth. I'm going to show you one of my videos from another engagement at Tier 8 from last season. And I'll show you some of that decision-making process there. And anyway, I don't think that you did a bad job. I think that you just got placed in a really shitty situation with your boat. And your boat didn't give you the utility to get out of it. This coupled with your, C being played very passively, and A, because the problem that you have, your caller is one guy, and if he's tied up, he can't make calls on the fly because he can't see what you can see. So one of the things that you can do is say, he's like, oh, I want you to push down here and do this and do that. What you can do is you can say, hey, could I or can I do this instead? Yeah, I can push down there, but I need the Hindenburg with me. Or, hey, Hindenburg, do you have your hydro? Or when does it pop back up? Well, I got 2.5 minutes. Okay, well, that's a problem because the Cassar is going to throw torps at you. So you had to make a decision to either engage the Cassar, which is going to try to kite away, or push in on the Kung Ming. And either you're going to cut, across over into the 5 line, or you're going to stay in the 4 line. There's so many different decisions. There's never one concrete way to do stuff. And it's just one of those things where, again, I don't think that you did a bad job. I just think that you got placed into a really shitty situation. And your cruisers really weren't backing you up. I mean, they did very little shooting at the destroyer once he was lit. But the Annapolis went down there, fragged the Des Moines, and then I don't know. I think your Hindenburg just really didn't back you up very well. And I could be wrong, but that's just what it appears to be here. One of the other things is your free look. And you'll notice that in the video that I'm going to post. Man, I'm always in free look. I'll have my guns set at the angles where I'm going to want them turned, or my torpedoes if I can. Torpedoes mess me up a lot because I'll be on guns and I'll switch to torpedoes and they're like on the opposite side of the boat and they're going to turn all the way around. It's like, why aren't my torpedoes pointing in the same direction as my guns? So that stuff can happen. But overall, I don't think that it's a bad game. I don't think that you did anything wrong necessarily, but you're just a destroyer. You can't push these flanks and angles. And then not having smoke, you don't have the ability to disengage when you want. You have to try to play it out. So obviously, you know, your shooting was a little bit off. You know that you should have disengaged sooner from the Cuissard once you pushed him away. Because basically you're like, nope, you can't come over here, I'm here. And once he turns away, you break contact. Because your Annapolis can't help you. And your Hindenburg's not helping you. So you can't take a whole bunch of damage. And one of the things I talked about as well is in the trade department. If you got this guy low and you can get him off the board and you're willing to do that, then trade with him. But if not, and the spotting and trying to do that kind of stuff is more important, then stick to that. And one of the things you may look at is if you have a similar comp where your caller, you got a different player, and those comps aren't allowing you to play like you did with that British cruiser, then you may need to change boats to something that runs a little bit better. Something with some smoke, or even Gdansk. Obviously, it has higher detectability, but you do get the smoke, and you do get radars. So at that point, you can have a little more flexibility, and you can disengage with your smoke if at all possible. But it'll be another thing that you have to learn. But overall, not bad. I think you just got placed in a bad situation. But if you have any questions on mods, gun sight, shooting, that kind of stuff, and I'll post my video, and if you have any questions about it, we can get together and can handle it.